There's ample evidence that Donald J. Trump is suffering from Alzheimer's, been suffering for a few years. And I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose anyone. I've got no background in medical sciences. I'm just a layman. But I don't need to be a doctor to recognize the common cold at the sight of blood or something. And I know Alzheimer's is a bit more complex than that. But just observe for yourself, see what you think. And bear in mind, when he stood for president the first time, there was a book where about 20 psychiatrists said he has got clear symptoms of severe mental disorders, personality disorders, that narcissistic personality disorder, the dark triad, and so on. And he's only got worse. And even in 2017, people were saying that his mental decline was such that he was unable to discharge his presidential functions. And the United States Constitution provides for the Constitution deposing the president, not the Constitution, the cabinet deposing the president on the basis that he's medically unfit, simply unable to execute his duties. And it was that bad in 2017. What's it like now? Not that the cabinet did that, but Trump insisted on having some naval admiral doctor assess him and say, "Oh wow, he passed with flying colors, and he's really just clear as a bell." Well, that's the military for you. You're not going to find against your commander in chief, or that be the end of your career. But right, let's go on. So all sorts of things that he's been showing, particularly since he became president for a second time. Forgetfulness, having no idea what he's doing, signed his executive orders, didn't know what they're about, surely never read them. I mean, he can't read to an adult level. Speaking incoherently, slurring his words. He's been doing that in public for several words, it says for several years. Oh, I must have it too. And I remember a doctor saying there was the old Goldwater rule when people were saying that Barry Goldwater, the Republican candidate in 1964, suffered derangement of mind. And some people say, well, let's not misuse psychiatric language for political smears, and it'd be unethical for a doctor to diagnose a patient if he or she has not examined that patient. But there are doctors in more recent years who said, well, there is so much footage of Trump that we can diagnose because you can watch thousands of hours of footage of him if you want to, and you can compare and contrast where he is now versus where he was 20 years ago, and the lucidity he had then versus the insanity that he's suffering at the moment. Bear in mind, his father had Alzheimer's and it's hereditary, which doesn't guarantee that Donald J. Trump would get it. One of his brothers died young of alcoholism. Another died a couple of years ago. His sister's still alive. So far as I know, none of his siblings had Alzheimer's. Um, which doesn't guarantee that he would get it or that he wouldn't get it. It could be none of the four get it. It could be all the four get it. But so far as I know, he's the only one in which it's likely. Admittedly, one of his brothers died in his 30s, and it's virtually impossible to get it that young. But so memory lapses, losing things often. He doesn't know where things are in the room, where he is, wandering off. He can't find the right word, mispronouncing things. So all sorts of misjudgments. His decision making is very erratic. His lability. So he suffers these mood swings. He hates Kim Jong Un, fire and fury, till we fell in love, and things like that. Helpful to Ukraine, cutting off all aid to Ukraine. He could go back, or a bit like when there was that government shutdown over the border in 2019. Nuh-uh, this was national security, state of emergency. No, 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 until all of a sudden it wasn't. Okay, so he's never going to back down, and then he does. Never surrender. Wouldn't hand himself in to get arrested for these trials, except he did. No, he didn't lose the 2020 election. No, 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 he didn't. No, 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 not going to go until he did. The thing with these tariffs, I think that is the ray of hope, is that he's so unreliable, he's going to back out on these. And the people think they can depend on him, well, you can't. Other thing is that, by the way, there will be a few winners out of this. A few companies will do well out of it, but most Americans and most countries will be hurt by this. But so going back to his symptoms, because he's probably onto late stage now, so his memory has just aggravated, and that's why he probably honestly doesn't know that it was Ukraine that was attacked and not Russia and things like that, and doesn't know who anybody is, not heard of any of these countries. Um, So that's why I don't think there's some sort of grand plan. That will require a bit too much memory. His impulsivity and firing off these furious tweets in the middle of the night. He seems to have trouble sleeping as well. And yeah, he just can't control his emotions. He's really emotionally incontinent and so forth. So that's why there's they refer to this retreat to the second childhood. So he's very confused and then fixated about various things about border security or whatever. So, and then he's deluded. He's often paranoid. It's the liberal media's fault that they're out to get you. The communists and the left wingers. I'm not sure he actually says communists. That is the wokesters, and it was the corrupt judge, the judiciary. They're all far left. It's a witch hunt. That might not just be rhetorical guff. Perhaps he genuinely believes that, in which case he's less dishonest than you might have thought, but more mentally ill. So you can see his mental incapacity makes him unfit for command. You wouldn't put someone like this in charge of any military unit or make him or her, it was a woman in this case, CEO of any company. Wouldn't put this person in charge of a hot dog stall, probably. And so it goes on. So his language problems, his speech problems, his vocabulary has narrowed as well. So the fitful sleep is one of the symptoms. So what else? So does he hallucinate? I don't think he goes quite so far, but he is deluded about things like that. So and now people with later stage symptoms, they find it very difficult to dress themselves. They need help with that. They often need to be spoon fed and things. Notably, we never see him do something like putting on a jacket or a coat in public. Why? The baseball cap is on. Does someone else put it on for him? Eating in public, and we know he likes to eat. Why does he never do that for several years? Perhaps because he can't really slop it all over himself, and so on. This, when he makes a public appearance, the suit looks like it's been put on a minute earlier, which maybe it has been. And that's why his makeup is so badly applied when he applies any of himself. So he gets hyper aggressive, he's very suspicious. So his behavior is changing. Because if you look at the way he comported himself in the early noughties, he behaved with a modicum of decorum. He was almost dignified. He was graceful compared to today. So he behaved himself as behoved someone who was running a major organization. And there were not these childish outbursts. He wasn't grossly insulting. He wasn't irate all the time. So his increasing irritability is suggestive of that as well. So this is a terminal condition. You can slow it down, but you can't actually stop it. And it's only going to get worse. He does a very stressful job, working quite long hours. And that's why phoning up for some live on-air chat with Fox News, we'll probably see more of that. More rants, yeah, this sense of persecution. So he harbors all these false beliefs, which is a part of the proof that he's unmoored from reality. He has been for a long time. I mean, it can't get much worse. So there we are. It's a condition he may die of. Will it get to the stage that even the Republican cabinet decides that they need to remove him from office and replace him with JD Vance? Just possibly. I was thinking JD Vance is the first vice president with a beard since goodness knows when, must be the 19th century. First president or vice president of any facial hair since when would it be? Would it be William Howard Taft? Right. Thank you for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate to PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Toodaloo.